Okay, so it's topic 9, and what this is all about is it's about strategic planning, and strategic planning, no doubt, is near and dear to my heart. That's what I've been doing for the last, many years. And what I'm about to say, though, is that with artificial intelligence, it's just going to become a must plan type of approach to doing planning. And why is because AI is going to be fantastic in drawing data and creating the you know the earth or the foundation for scenario planning. I think scenario planning is going to be much more effective. And again, just to give you some background, way back when, right? Royal Dutch Shell did some scenario planning. This is well before Russia was a big gas producer, and they predicted through scenario planning what was going to happen with Russia selling oil and gas, and they made gazillions over that, and so it's truly effective. And what I did was I just did a quick one for the assignment number 3 on a scenario plan on AI. And if you look at that, you'll get an idea of how easy it is to do it and how effective it can be. And and we'll take it from there. Okay, so that's where we're at. And any questions before I get started? You can unmute and ask a question. Okay, can I see some thumbs up? Are you ready? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay. Oh, so Ivory, I see you have a hand up. Did you want to ask a question? Okay, I'll get started then. Um, okay, so what we're going to do is, if time is allowed, depending on how I can get through these slides, I'd like to do a breakout team exercise. And what that exercise is all about is to have you or introduce you to making the problem statement. I noticed that I think there's one submission for assignment number 3, and I ask you to do problem statements because problem statements are really key in the strategic planning process. And I think I've kind of made the emphasis last time around. The saying goes, if you define the problem effectively, you have 90% of the solution. And that works for, we're going to be talking about doing strategic goals for strategic planning. And if you define the problem effectively, then you will create one of the better strategic goals. And that's why I find that as very important to know that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go along the lines of all the Tim Horton stuff that you're doing in the participation activities. And I'm going to introduce to you a strategic issue that I kind of just generated. It's partly true, but I want you to look at that and develop a problem statement. So like I said, if we get to that point and we have some time, we'll get into that and I'll put you into groups. But what I'd like you to do is, if you can, while we're doing this, you go to the document that's part of assignment number 3. You can either go to this link right here and you'll get it right off the internet, or you can use this Google Docs link and go into my my Google Drive and pick that document out, because it'll give you a little more insights as to how to do a problem statement. And just one more thing about problem statements: there are good problems and there are bad problems. So a good problem is an opportunity, and you do a problem statement around an opportunity, and a bad problem is a threat. So you do a problem statement around a threat and how you would deal with that, and that's how you get to some goals to be able to counter a threat or to take advantage of an opportunity. So that's all I'll tell you about that, but I just wanted to get you ready. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be showing this particular slide or sharing that in the breakout rooms. And then when I come out of the breakout rooms, please remind me if I don't switch back to sharing, when we're all together again. Okay, so that's where that is. Okay, all right. So where we are in the sort of the evolution of management principles is really around this, the quantitative side and the system side. So that's evolved into really understanding that. And again, scenario planning is all about understanding what the interdependencies are. And that's a system itself. So in systems thinking, you're looking for patterns. And if you understand those patterns better, you're going to have a more effective strategic plan and a very sort of robust approach to dealing with, where you want to go and outcomes and dealing with the environment. So that's key. So this is where it all fits in. And the thing is if you can do great strategic planning, you're gonna be very successful, and your organization is going to be very successful. And here's the thing about, I talk about strategic issues, go to developing problem statements, to going to goals. And when you look at defining strategic issues, the organizations that ask the better questions, so they're more in tune. So what does that mean? It means that diversity really helps. If you've got people from different parts of the organization that have different approaches to things, that means you will ask better questions. And if you ask the better questions, well, then you'll get more rich material to be able to design a strategic plan to go forward and be successful. So that's the kind of things that you need to think about when you're going forward. So let's talk about test number 3. So test number 3 is going to be during, the exam week. All right. It's going to be offline, off campus. And again, you access this test number 3 through Blackboard under topic 13. And it's going to be a one-time thing. And again, we're getting near the end of the term. So if some of you happen to miss this, if you can't substantiate why you're missing this, it's going to be really hard for me to make accommodations. So please, be available for that test, December the 17th, 7 p.m. until 8:20. And the content is going to be on topics 9, 10, 11, and 12. So in topics 13, we're just going to really talk about, big data and again, emphasis on artificial intelligence and all those things. But the test study parts are 9, 10, 11, and 12. And again, same type of test, 50 multiple choice and a few, like within 50 questions, mainly multiple choice and some true and false questions. And again, your lockdown browser and your webcam will be required to do this test. So please test it to make sure it works well before the test, because it's going to be hard to get, technical support near the end of the term to be able to get through this. All right. So that's what that's all about. So any questions about test number 3 at all? Okay. I'm ready to get started. Thumbs up. Okay, good. All right, let me see now. Let me see here. Okay. All right. So again, the approach for test number 3. Take a look at, the link to test 3, the practice test. That's it. So to go in, they're going to be in topic 12 to get a sense of what's going on. These commentaries are very important. In that commentary, it's all the standard stuff. You look at the golden keys, and you look at the highlights in yellow and the bolded, and that will really give you a sense of where to study. And these Robin e-text PowerPoints are really important. So you're going to see not as many for this test. So Robin's chapter 2 and 4, PowerPoints for topic 9. And again, we already covered a little bit of chapter 2 for the other topics, so the remainder of the slides, but I'd look at the whole thing, and because there's not that many slides in there. For topic 10, it's Robin's chapter 13. Not too much, on the value chain, that nothing in Robin's, but again, on the socially responsible and global organizations, a lot of stuff in chapter 3. And again, all our assignments are due on December the 6th as well. And then the assignment number 3 is due next Monday, right? Okay, so again, when you go to topic 13, you're going to see this particular post, and that's what you click on to get in. And again, test your device for respondus lockdown and webcam capability well before the test. Okay, So that's where we're heading. And this is a little more about, you know, especially if you're a Chromebook user, and I don't think there were any Chromebook users in this class, but you know, read the instructions to make sure you're all set. And then we're going to talk about the deliverables. Okay, so in the deliverables for topic 9, it's really about the the participation topic 9A, which is we want you to conduct a pestle analysis and a SWOT analysis. So that's 2 deliverables. And again, I'm going to explain this in this topic on what they're all about. And again, I would like you to use the templates and keep them in the templates, because then I can compare, you know, assignment to assignment, you know, student teams to student teams. And what's going to happen is that if you do a great job, keep all your information from this activity as a team, because you'll be able to use those templates, and then you'll have used those templates, and you'll be familiar with doing questions 10 and 11 in the group team Amazon project, assignment number 4, if your team decides that they want, you know, you want to do questions 10 and 11. Because remember, I told you it's optional how many questions that you do in that Amazon number 4 assignment to make up 100 or a little bit 100 plus marks. All right, because you're not going to do every question. Okay, so what I want you to do, you know, is take a look at how we're going to put this together. And what you're doing is you're looking at factors. When you go into the environment, you know, and I'm going to explain this, when you go into the environment, you look at different factors, and you look of them just happening, or some trending in particular factors that could become a risk or an opportunity. And we're going to talk about that in various categories, and that's what PESTEL is all about. It's, you know, political, environmental, social, technological, and what's the other one? L is legal, and environmental, and economic. All right, so those are the, you know, those are the categories on the PESTEL, and then the SWOT is strengths, weakness, opportunities. And again, I want to show you how this all comes about, you know, in the planning process itself. Right, so 2 deliverables. You know, it's a group assignment that you need to do, so only one other person has to upload. And again, use the format shown on the document that you download. So if you download this particular Google Doc out of my drive, you're going to see several pages, and it's a Crytel document, and that's one of the companies that I used to run. And you look at pages 9, 10, and 11, and that's the actual template that I want you to use. All right, so that's that piece. And then how does this fit? Is that if you take a look at what the SWOT analysis involves, you know, you're really defining, you know, what strengths the organization has, what weaknesses your organization has, and then what opportunities are available. And normally what you do is you shore up your weaknesses and you leverage your strengths to be able to capitalize on opportunities. And then what kind of threats are in front of you. And what happens there is that, you know, you look at how your strengths can leverage, you know, dealing with these threats, and how you shore up your weaknesses so that you can mitigate the effect of the threats. And so the PESTEL really looks at, you know, the external side of that, the opportunities and threats, but there's other devices, and we're going to talk about these. All right, you know, and this is Michael Porter's 5 forces, where you really get a sense of what the industry is doing and what you need to worry about to be able to mitigate threats or leverage on the opportunities. And the McKinsey 7S, and I've used this for years, and it's probably one of the better instruments to be able to measure how ready your organization is, and where its strengths and weaknesses arise. So the McKinsey 7S is, and it's, you know, these Porter's 5 forces and McKinsey 7S are all over the internet. You can get really good documents to show you how to use them. Okay, so again, what we're going to do is that you know, with the links, you know, you won't be able to get the links off of this presentation because, you know, when I talk about these links, because these are pictures, you know, you need to go to the Blackboard topic 9 to be able to click those links. So you're going to essentially do a pestle analysis for Tim Hortons, and that's the political, economical, social, technological, environmental, and legal. And then when you download that template that I've given you, it's gonna ask you for a little more information about these factors. And I'll explain that a little more when we get to that piece. And then you're going to put together a SWOT analysis for Tim Hortons, you know, based on this and based on Porter's 5 Forces and McKinsey 7S. You know, should you decide to use those to really round this off, because it'll really help you, you know, for assignment number 4 in the Amazon Group project. Okay, so here's how it kind of breaks down. You know, I talked about the McKinsey 7S is really on the internal side of the SWOT, strengths and weaknesses. And you can see where it gets into the organizational structure, you know, the robustness of the structure that you'd evaluate, the robustness of the systems, you know, so data systems and your process systems and all those things, the style of management that you use. You notice, you know, we're really talking about all those things that we've covered so far. You know, the staff, so the type of skills, you know, the staff, the type of people that you bring in with the core competencies that you need to create differential advantage, and then the skills, and the skills relate to the competencies, and then the overall strategy. And this shared values really is, that's the type of culture that you have to be able to deal in your industry, you know, in the business that you're working in. So those are, you know, that's the internal side. On the external side, you know, the 5 forces model, we talk about threats of new entrants. So already you're talking about the competitive landscape, right? You know, people coming in, competing with you. The threat of substitutes. You know, in economics, you know, one of my better examples is, you know, if the price of hamburgers go up, people eat more pizza, you know, so pizza is a substitute in fast food requirements, all right? So that could be, you know, if your offering is just so hard to get, people will find something else that does the same for them, and they'll go to substitutes, all right? The bargaining power of buyers. So in some cases, you know, you need to recognize that, where the buyers are in charge, and then you need to be price conscious. You need to be value conscious about, you know, how to you know, get around the power of buyers, and then the bargaining power of suppliers. So, you know, just as an example, like Home Depot doesn't just take any supplier. You know, they have to meet conditions, and it's competitive. Why? Because Home Depot is a big volume buyer. They have a lot of power. All right. They will dictate, you know, who could come in and what they're going to, you know, what the condition of the you know, of the arrangement will be. And then the rivalry amongst competitors. You know, if it's a real fierce rivalry, well then, you know, you really have to adjust your strategy accordingly. And then here's the pestle, like I said. And so these two are mainly around defining what the opportunities and threats are, you know, from the external environment, and McKinsey, and there's other vehicles out there, but this is one that's really key that will help you define the strengths and weaknesses, and this is where you're doing an internal scan, and this is where you're going to do an external scan. Okay, all right. So then on 9B, again, this is another, you know, team input, and what I want you to do is I want you to use this the same template, you know, for the balanced scorecard. You know, it looks like this, and you're going to do it for Tim Hortons, and then I'm just going to talk to you about what a balanced scorecard strategy map looks like, and you're going to have to do a strategy map, you know, for that particular balanced scorecard that you did for Tim Hortons. All right. Again, I showed you what I found, you know, in the activities, is that a few groups really didn't understand what we meant by mean performance by category. So you can see in finances here, there were two things that were on the balanced scorecard. So you added, the two scores and then you averaged them. In this one here, there was 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, you did the total and then you divided it by 4. All right. To get, so this is an average mean performance to really give you a sense of what's going on. And then, especially for board of directors, they can zone right in and say, oh, hang on, look at that. This is our lowest mean performance. We better shape up our customers. So it really makes it easy, for people that have, from the governance point of view, can look at this balanced scorecard and really get a sense of how the organization is doing. Okay, so here's a little bit more, or here's a little bit on the strategy map thing. So these are the 4 categories, right, in the balanced scorecard, right? And what you've done then is that you'll create goals, and these goals are sequential, and that's what you need to understand. So you start with the learning and growth, because why? Because these goals are about organizational capacity. So if you don't have capacity to do something financially, you can't do it, right? And that's why you need to show the connection. So here's a learning and growth goal, building capacity for the organization, and it needs to grow a certain way to be able to say, help them create a really strong business process. This is internal businesses. And now if you have a strong internal business process, well, then now you can support customers in a very strong way. And then naturally, if you're doing that really well, all of a sudden now you're going to achieve some key financial goals. So again, you want to show the sequence, and I showed you an example. So for goal, this is goal LG2, learning and growth. This would be LG1, all right? And then from LG1, you'd need a good, IB3, and then you can support a good C3 goal, and then you can support a good F2 and F3 goal. So again, you show the sequence using arrows, from the goal, the foundational goal all the way up. And here, this is just the main way of what you're doing is, you're building internal capacity, and that drives improved internal processes, which drives improvement in customer and stakeholder satisfaction, which drives improved financial results. And remember, I talked about the service profit chain. Well, this is really an illustration of the service profit chain, and how to get sustainable growth going. If you get this right and you understand the service profit chain, it's a really great combination to create a successful organization. Okay. So how are we doing so far? So those are the participation activities. I'm going to come back to them a little bit to show you a little more details, but now we're going to get into strategic planning stuff. So any questions at all? Okay, go ahead, Ivory. You have a question?
Sir, I just want to ask the question. How many for the SWOT and PESTEL analysis, how many examples are we going to give?
Um, it's hard to put a number on it, but I'm not looking for an exhaustive one. I'm looking that the ones that you do pick, you've really done some critical thinking about. All right. So, I'd say, maybe a maximum of maybe 5 to 6 strengths, a maximum of 5 to 6 weaknesses, 5 to 6 threats, 5 to 6 opportunities. All right. And using that as a guideline, if you want to do more and because you feel that it's important, you do that, but not less than that, because then it really kind of takes away from the exercise. But here's the thing is that, you can go out and use ChatGPT or Copilot to help you do that. But it's asking the right questions in ChatGPT and Copilot, to really get to the nub of what's, where Tim Hortons is as an organization. Okay, so did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ivy. That was a great question. Thank you. Okay, so we're getting now into, why do we need strategic planning? And again, I will emphasize that you could see some highlighting going on here. All right. So this this timeline is very, very important. And so what do you do? And this is this straight, business business considerations or business fundamentals, right? So you develop a strategy, and then you start developing the business, and then you get to the point where you deploy that strategy, and then what happens is that either you're doing so well that you've picked up most of the market, and normally then what happens is if you're very successful, competitors come in, and that's why we always talk about Michael Porter's 5 forces. If you're doing really, really well, a business magazine writes about all your successes, and then other organizations are saying, wow, we want a piece of that action. So they start coming in. So what happens is, if you don't do anything different, your business starts to decline. So this is a key timeline, a key development that you should always keep in mind. You develop, you deploy, and then you decline. And in this declining fact, and we're going to talk about, Boston Consulting Group, where, you get to a point where you decide, oh, should we reinvest and or just straight recalibrate, or should we get out of the business? So those are the kind of strategic decisions that you start making on the decline. And so what strategic planning is all about, it's about building competitive advantage, right? And now I'll bring in the triple bottom line. Sustainability piece is that you want to create competitive advantage, but you want to do this in a socially and environmentally supportive way, responsible way. All right. But what does competitive advantage talk about? Well, it talks about cost leadership, or how unique you are in the marketplace. So people will come to you because there's no one like what you can offer, and in terms of differentiation. And in marketing first mover advantages, I talked about blue ocean strategy, and what blue ocean is. It's an uncontested market. So if you go into an uncontested market and you're the first one in, well, you can tie up customers, you could tie up key suppliers. So first mover advantage is really strong. Time-based advantage, so making sure that maybe there's a key opportunity that has a time life to it, a life cycle. So you make sure that you're in fast enough to take advantage of that, or a technological advantage, and then using the right alliances so that what you have is you have this it's a powerful organization that can help all the conditions for your business to thrive, because you have this win-win if from Mary Parker Follett, of these people that come together that are synergistic in that strategic alliance, and they all help each other come into a market and really just they have the power in that market. It's their market, right? So these are all the things that we're gonna talk about. And when you do have a strategic plan, you highlight that shared vision, and the employees can see the bigger picture. And the best part, again, with all these management principles that we learned, especially on the behavioral side, if you can have employees see themselves as a shared vision, see themselves, in that famous FM station I talk about, what's in it for me, WIFM, what's in it, yeah, whatever it is, okay. So that's really how you can make this strategic plan just a fantastic approach, to be successful, and this importance of a shared vision is key. Okay, so all managers plan in some way, so it's just at what level do they plan? And you notice I got this highlighted again. All managers plan in some way. And you can see that, in the 4 functions of management, planning is a key part. And if you take a look at, let's see, entry level or low level management, it's mainly around the operational planning, and what they're looking at is that, how can I produce, and have the perfect mousetrap to be able to do it better, faster, cheaper, and with more value, right? And then the next level is the tactical, and this is, the middle management level, and that's where, the functional planning comes in, and the functional strategies, in terms of, production. Well, production might go out and find, the best, lean production system that will manage inventory to the best optimized way, and bring and get the product out and put that product into the customer's shop or house, in a way. So that's more of a tactical. And then you get into the senior level of management, and it's the CEO mainly that deals with the board, and they're doing long-term planning. And what long-term planning is, normally in North America, long-term planning is about 5 to 10 years, all right? In some cases, 3 to 5, depending on the industry and the business. If you look at Japan, long-term planning in Japan is like 50 years. They understand that. And you say, well, how good is a 50-year strategic plan? Well, it's reviewed every year, and it's recalibrated, if need be, or it regenerates and addresses, the trends and going on. But that's how strong that long-term planning can be. And just as an aside, most organizations have a 3-year strategic plan, because guess what? Executive compensation runs on 3-year cycles in most cases, and that's almost a tragedy, because they should be looking further out to be able to put the track down to be able to get to a better place and be more capable to do things in the long term. Okay, so again, here you are: low-level managers, operational plans; middle managers, typical, tactical plans; and then top-level managers, strategic plans. And again, you can see this is highlighted, right? So plans differ in breadth, in this, when I mean breadth, in scope, right? In time frame, all right? So low-level managers, their operational plans, I'm sure, are 12 months, right? And why? They follow a 12-month budget, right? Middle managers, they may be a 1 to 2 years, but they're very close to the operational budget. And then the strategic plan, 3 years and beyond. And again, the low-level managers, specificity is very detailed. The middle managers, it's around the operations itself, of whatever that is in the functional area. And then on the strategic plan, it's very broad, but it's directional, and that's the key. You're going in a specific directional, and it really does show where the outcomes should be, so people can keep their eye on the prize. They use that expression. Okay, all right. But the key thing about strategic planning are the interdependencies, and that's where systems thinking comes in. If you practice systems thinking, you can look at how key interdependencies create the synergism and the coordination and the collaboration to get to some very profound outcomes. So that's really key. And I've learned this. I painfully learned this, in the strategic planning experiences that I had over my career, right? So those are the kind of things to really understand. But here I want to kind of get you ready here in terms of, what do you need for strategic planning? Well, you need, and especially in our age of AI coming on, you need very strong analytical skills. You need to be able to analyze data and information to make these informed decisions and to get around biases as well, cognitive biases. And so that's the importance, is to really identify the key, relevant opportunities and threats, and the overall market landscape. to really get a sense of what's going on. Critical thinking, I keep on talking about that in this course. You evaluate the information objectively, and you have ways of comparing it, and essential for problem solving and making these sound decisions. Vision and strategic thinking, ability to develop this long-term vision and seeing the big picture, and the importance around, goals and objectives. How do you organize towards that? And the thing is, we talk about form follows function. You develop, those goals and objectives that really articulate the strategy. And once the strategy is articulated, then you organize accordingly to be able to have the resources and the focused resources to be able to, achieve the outcomes that you're looking for. Leadership. We've been talking about leadership all course, right? The ability to lead and inspire a team, and making sure that the plan is effectively communicated and executed. And in today's world, now they have really good software. I'm going to give you an advertisement for one really good piece just so you know about it. But the thing is, in real estate, it's location, location, location. In business, it's communication, communication, communication. So this is key. We had a whole topic around financial acumen when we talked about cost accounting and looking at productivity calculations and looking at cost of goods sold in terms of understanding profitability. Well, all these things come together because the finance people have a big part in working to create a very successful strategic plan, because they really need to do some very strong forecasting to know what they'll need in investment and what they'll need in operating capital to be able to do what they need to do to get to the strategic planning outcomes. So financial acumen, really, really important. Project management, you get nowhere without project management, all right? You manage projects and timelines effectively. Last topic I told you, 65% of projects in North America fail. And why? It's because they don't have the systems in place, the infrastructure. They don't have the processes in place and the discipline to be able to manage their progress and the transformation and change management. They have tools to be able to get to where they need to do. Problem solving, can't say enough about that, and that's why the key thing around doing a problem statement in strategic planning is so important. And then negotiating skills. Well, especially, when you're bringing partnerships together, you're bringing alliances together, you need to negotiate and reach agreements on how you're going to do things. You need to reach agreements with suppliers. Sometimes you may, negotiate a strategic relationship with the supplier so that it's a win-win combination, and maybe you get exclusive rights to their products and no one else does, in your industry that can compete with you. So there's, negotiating skills are really key. Okay, adaptability. It's all about flexibility and adaptability in this age of the economy. Creativity, no doubt about that. The ability to think outside the box, and then this collaboration, right? Ability to work effectively with others. And this is where the strategic plan needs to get beyond what I call silos. And normally, functional entities inside of an organization, they have some kind of walls, and they're a little more self-interest, and you need to find ways to break down those walls and get to where you're going. And in TELUS, what we did, when I was there, is that we flipped the organization to look at the customer flow, and all the top line executives were a portion of their reward system was based on the overall success of the organization. So it forced people to work together in some ways, right? So you're cultivating these skills. Individuals can effectively contribute to the planning process and towards the success. So, that's really the key to that. And again, it's a systems approach to management. And where do you start? You start on what's going on outside, right? The environment. You start analyzing there, okay? And again, why do you need it? Let's get back to, develop, deploy, and decline, and we see how this goes. And it's no different really than a product life cycle. Product life cycle, look at a product life cycle. Does that not look pretty similar? All right. And here where, you're into market development, you're growing, you reach some maturity, and then you decide, well, do you really want to, do you really want to keep producing that product, or is there an amount of what we call disruptive technology that will just replace that? And the best example I have is the iPod. It turned the music industry on its ear, because all of a sudden now, an end user could buy one tune at 99 cents, didn't have to buy a $30 CD way back when, and so the middle, the middleman is what they used to call it, but the middle organizations were bypassed, right? So those are the kind of things that you start understanding, going through the competitive advantage life cycle. And just a little example I can't remember the name of the company. The company was a producer of organic liquids and compounds and whatever. And what they would do is, when they first created an organic offering, like an organic solution, say, I can't remember what it was, but no one would make it. So what would they do? They would put it out in the market, and naturally, because no one was making it, they had total competitive advantage because there was no competitors. So they would charge premium pricing. But they knew that, with the development of their competitors with technology, they would soon have replacements or substitutes in the market that could take some of that market. And all of a sudden, they'd start declining. And then they get into commodity pricing, lower pricing, to be able to maintain a good market share in that market. So, understanding these things really gives you a good sense of how to, make a very successful organization. Okay, so here's some work that I did, and guess what? This is a 1970s Xerox model. It's working today, and here's what it's all about: is that where are you now? Where do you want to be? That's a gap. And then how do you get there? And the thing is that some strategic goals, aren't, they aren't, well, they aren't sexy. All right. So, but they're needed there. So I call them lights on strategic goals. So lights on strategic goals is maybe, there's a producer that has fantastic infrastructure, all right? But now they're looking at market growth. Well, the thing is that fantastic infrastructure is strategic to their success. That's a lights on. It's got to be there, and it's got to be there for 30, 40 years of the life cycle of the organization. And then you would do a stretch goal, maybe to get into another particular market, or to expand your product line or whatever. So what you have is, where do you want to be, where are you now? And that's your baseline. Remember, I keep on talking about baseline. This is your situation. And oh, by the way, okay, this is the starting point. And you start measuring your capabilities, your baseline, and your existing performance. Where do you want to be? Well, that's what your vision says. And then how do you get there? And that's the planning gap. And you have lights on strategic goals and stretch strategic goals to get you there. Okay, so that's where we're at. But just let me talk to you about the Franklin Covey Institute did research, and what they're saying is, if you set 11 to 20 goals, like if you've got so many goals in your strategic plan, well, chances are you're gonna achieve 0 goals, with excellence. Because why? You're spread too thin and you can't focus. If you're gonna do 4 to 10 key goals, well, then chances are you'll have achieved excellence in 1 or 2 of those goals. And then if you just have these, what they call, the wildly important goals, 2 to 3, well, then you will, achieve excellence in there. So again, it's all about focus again, right? And here's another thing. So, Franklin Covey, well, Franklin Covey is Stephen Covey's son, and Stephen Covey wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, and he came up with, and again, he borrowed this, I think, from Roosevelt, but that's another story. He developed these 4 quadrants, and what happens is that so this quadrant 1, all right, is highly important and highly urgent, okay, and the thing is that it's easy to spend all of your time there, but if you're looking at strategic stretch goals, you need to dedicate some time while you're in the swamp fighting the alligators, and those strategic goals are in quadrant 2, and so they're highly important, but they're not as urgent. But you need to spend, and I call it the 30% factor, and I've had this sort of validated with other authors and business writers. So if you spend 30% of your time that things are very strategically important, yet not that urgent, you start building the track, the railroad track to get there, the infrastructure or the capabilities to there, because you'll never get there if you don't spend that time, because it's a time process. You just don't get there. You just don't decide you're going to do something different and it happens in 2 days. You've got to spend that time to be able to set it up, right? And again, the thing is, this is not important, not urgent. You never want to be there, all right? Okay, sorry, urgent but not important. You don't want to be there, and not important or not urgent. You don't want to be there at all, right? So these are the 2 quadrants you want to be: very important, very urgent, and very important, not so urgent. Okay, so that's what this is all about. Okay, and in that process, you have mission, visions, and values. And the thing is that the strategic plan needs to align with the organization's mission, value, and the mission, vision, and the values. And here's something that I learned at Telus, as a group, and we taught each other as well. We're a planning group in business development, and we had a vision for the organization. We had a mission for the organization. We had our corporate values. And when we wanted to introduce something, we'd always check it against, is this going to satisfy us in our vision? Is that true to the mission that we have for the organization? Does it satisfy our values? And we used to call that mapping. And it really kept us focused. It really kept us on, doing the things we needed to do, based on not so scarce resources. All right, it's an economics factor. So if you have scarce resources, you want to make sure that you have the best deployment of your resources, and mapping back to your vision and your mission and your values is really productive. It's really, it's really important to be able to do that, to stay focused. Okay, so again, so here's another little piece of, I've built probably 100 of these over the last 25 years, right? So, this is the strategic framework that I've been working in. And oh, by the way, so what happened when I went to TELUS, I was responsible for the strategic planning process, from the board to the holding company to the strategic business units and to the what I call the holding company and then the subsidiaries and then their strategic business units, because some of the subsidiaries had some other businesses. All right. And in that whole process, I spent a year business process, improving that process. So I learned a lot of stuff, and I've taken the best out of best standards, to really kind of put together what I have in terms of strategic planning. And this is what I learned from that exercise, is that when it comes down to the strategic framework, your value proposition, your strategy, and your business model are the most important components to get right. All right. And your value proposition right from the start really has the internal piece of where your strategy should be. All right, because that's how you build a value proposition. So let's say let's say Hewlett Packard. Well, they're all about product leadership. So already that gives you an intonation of where their strategy needs to be. If you take a look at McDonald's, well, their main piece is operational excellence. So that tells you, where their strategy should go, right? So the value proposition already starts to intonate what your strategy is. And then your strategy itself is how you develop competitive advantage. And then understanding your business model to accommodate that strategy, because sometimes you may not have an effective enough business model to execute on your strategy, right? So these are key pieces. So if your strategy is right, your business model builds in competitive advantage, then it's all about execution, all right? So that's how you bring it together. And when you're looking at strategic management, again, some highlighting here, what are you doing? You're formulating, you're implementing, and you're evaluating cross-functional decisions. Remember, I talked about interdependencies, all right? So how's the organization working together, to be able to be the most effective and in unison, to look at one virtual combined operation, that can really, make it happen. So you're building and implementing that strategic plan. You're setting that direction for the overall organization, and you're building competitive advantage, right? So strategy is the long-term plan that determines the direction of the organization. Okay, so remember I told you I was going to give you an advertisement for strategic planning. I worked with Cascade Strategy for a little while, trying to work with other clients. And this was probably the best strategic planning software I have ever worked for. And the reason is that, the platform, it has everyone associated with the plan in the platform, and it gives you real-time results. It's fantastic, right? Is it a silver bullet? No. Is it perfect? No, but it's the best I've seen. So, if you get out there later on and you want to know about a strategic planning platform, you could go back and think about Cascade Strategy. They started out of Australia. They have an office in Toronto, and they're a great company. All right, so let me just kind of bring you back now to what I talked about. All right, so, where are you now? So you start looking at what's going on in the environment, in the industry, inside of your firm, inside your functions, what kind of tasks are you doing, right? And then you take a look at, well, what, who's who in the zoo, in terms of competitive methods, and, this is where the 5 forces model comes in. And then you start, looking at what your domain is going to be. And we're going to talk about this later on, but when you talk about your domain, that's more along the lines of global strategy. That's a higher level strategy. Are we going to be international, or are we going to be local, right? Who are we going to go after? Who's our primary competition? Where's our target market? Right? Okay, so again, you're looking at the 5 forces here, and then you take a look at, all right, what kind of business do we want? What's the nature of that? Who are the target customers? The products and services that we're going to produce, what are they? What standards are we going to go to? How are we going to accomplish this? And then you get into, from all this analysis, this is your SWOT analysis here. Functionally, how capable are you? Financially, how strong are you? Structurally, do you have the infrastructure to do it? Your physical assets, your labor force. And then based on that, now you can start looking at, okay, so what do we want to do in terms of, and in this model, we say objectives, but in my vocabulary lexicon, you start with strategic goals. So, and you're going to find in the literature, Some people call goals objectives, and some people call objectives goals. But it's what vocabulary that you accept, and then you go with that and you standardize it in your organization. Okay, so that's the model. And here's in the work that I used to do, if I went, I did some nonprofit work, and it was the Cultural Alliance, right? And the first conversation I have with these people is, we're going to build you a strategic house, right? And where does that strategic house, start? It starts at the foundation. So let's figure out, what our corporate core values are, because lo and behold, that's what really drives decision making, from a foundational point of view. And then we say, okay, so what's our vision? Well, we outline what that vision is, for our organization, and then our mission. What kind of business are we in, and who's going to be our customers, and what does our value proposition look like? And then based on that, what are our critical success factors? And it's really important to really understand that, in terms of, each industry has different critical success factors. Each business has different critical success factors. Each market has different critical success factors. So if you start, and again, what are you doing by outlining these? You're defining the problem, right? And that's why problem statements are so important. And then what you do is, your vision is pretty wide. So you break it down into strategic focus areas. So some companies, maybe they start off, they only have 2 focus areas, or maybe just 1. Other organizations like this one, had 5 focus areas. And this is where you start building, your goals based on these particular strategic focus areas. So that's what a strategic house is all about. Okay, but again, okay, here's some highlighting. You evaluate the current performance. That's the very first step, right? Where are you now? And then what's affecting you from the environmental scan? And the thing is that in this current performance, here's where the McKinsey 7S comes in. This is an environmental scan. How are you doing? And then you conduct an external environmental scan, and then you look at projecting future trends, and then based on your environmental analysis, the PESTEL, political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental aspects. You find out what factors are really important and that are impacting your business and impacting your threats and opportunities, and then you translate that into that information into the SWOT, and then that SWOT now gives you the idea of how to create your strategic issues, and then from the issues, your problem statements, and then from the problem statements, your goals and your strategies and your tactics and your action plans, right? That's how it all comes together. And then what gets measured gets done. So you track your performance, you look at key performance indicators, and the best way in today's world, to look at your key performance indicators is placing them in a balanced scorecard. Okay? All right, so I've been doing lots of talking here. Let's see here. Any questions at all before I get started again? We're all good? Okay, want to keep going? Okay, we'll keep going. So here you go. All right. You evaluate current performance. Like I said, that's the first thing you do. That's your baseline. That's where you're finding out what you're doing. And then, you create your mission vision. You look at, in this case here, this is for an existing organization. You look at what you have, and then you review that. And then you analyze the strategic issues in light of the current situation. And then you may, change your mission and vision or whatever, and then you generate the best alternatives for objectives. You implement those strategies, and then you evaluate and control. So that's the process in itself. So you break it down into phases. So the first phase is what I call the situation analysis. This is where you're doing all the analysis on the situation. The second one is the strategy formulation, and creating the mission and the vision is all part of your strategy. It all has to link together, right? And then when you get into implementation, now you're into initiatives and programs and budgets and procedures, and then performance. So that's how it kind of all comes together. We talked about this thing, so you can see that the mission statement is at the top of the triangle. It drives the strategic goals. Those strategic goals drive the tactical goals, and those tactical goals, drive the operational goals. So, right here you may have, as an example, this is a senior manager. He's got the marketing and finance under that, so that the marketing manager and the finance manager will come up with, a plan for that function, and then the supervisors will take that and then translate that into more more detailed goals and plans. Okay, so again, you have a company goal, turns into a department goal, and then that could turn into a project goal. So everything gets cascaded down, right? And that's why that strategic planning company is called Cascade, all right? And then, so in that strategic planning, how will you measure your success? How will you track them? How will you achieve those goals? You have to answer all those questions. And then here's some information about, the benefits of strategic planning. I kind of talked to you about that already. But the thing is, what's the limitations? The biggest problem is buy-in. You need to have everyone understanding that they're in this shared vision, and they need to continue that commitment. And, we talked about that in transformation. Commitment is what drives transformation. And if you just have organizations that sort of will just give you lip service, and you haven't reached that commitment, as soon as you run into a challenge, then you're thwarted. You're at a you're vulnerable. So you really need to really get that that commitment. And how you get that commitment is through keeping the resource allocation commitment and alignment, right? Okay. So again, here's the stuff for the environmental scan that you're going to do on for Tim Hortons. And here's an example. I showed you this of the different factors that you'd look at. So these are just examples. And when you would do the Tim Hortons, you would pick out the factors that are relevant to Tim Hortons in today's world and over its horizon, its strategic horizon. So you'd say, okay, so what is it in government policy that affects Tim Hortons now and for the next 5 years? Okay, and maybe there's they don't really have to worry about government funding or anything. They're self-sufficient, so that's that wouldn't be in your PESTEL analysis. But maybe tax policy will, because maybe there's a pending, because you're doing an environmental scan, and maybe there's a pending redistribution of business tax in Canada or the country that you're operating in. So those are the kind of things that you take a look at. So here is the template that I've given you the link for. And what I want you to do then, and the instructions are here too, all right? Okay, these are just suggestions. And what you would do for Tim Hortons is, let's say that you would pick government policies, and let's say that the government policy then would be the health restrictions are going to get more strict, and what that will involve then is more scrutiny, which will mean maybe you even need a quality manager to oversee the quality of all the food, right? So then what I want you to do is then for that particular description, just put down what's the potential impact. Well, in that case, it's likely high, so you'd put H here. And then implications and importance, well, it's probably going to be 24 plus months, so that you know what the duration is. And then what's the the importance? Well, that's a really it could be like a negative impact if you're not so you'd put negative. And then is the impact increasing? Well, it's going to get more and more serious because you can see that the government is hiring more people under the standards, for that aspect. And then the critical importance, is it really important, unimportant, or unknown? Well, definitely it's important. So you pick one of these, or maybe it's not even on the list, but you pick one from the research that you're doing. You describe it here. You rate it in terms of potential impact from a HMLU. You put down the time frame. You tell me if it's if it's an opportunity, it's a positive thing. If it's and then the impact, is it decreasing, increasing, or not? And then how important it is. Very important. Okay, so that's how you're going to do that. Here's a little more about the McKinsey 7S model. And I would go through this because this is a key tool that you'll be able to use, when you leave here and you're in your own organization. That's just the model itself. And here's more about the Porter's 5 forces. You can see that it's highlighted, so you'll need to know a little bit about what is competitive rivalry, what are the threats of new entrants, the bargaining power of suppliers, the bargaining power of customers, the threats of substitutes. So let's say, I'll give you an example of a buying power of suppliers. All right, so I started a water treatment business back in, let me see, the early 90s. Okay, the early 90s. No, sorry, the early 2000s. All right, and what was is, I had a lot of water, I'm a chemical engineer, so I have a lot of water treatment experience. So I went to this prominent wholesaler and I said, I'd like to use your products. And they said, well, how long have you been in business? I haven't. Have you worked in this industry before? No, I haven't. We're not going to supply you. That's how much power. I couldn't say, well, you have to supply me. They just wouldn't. All right. And what happened was I found another wholesaler that would accommodate me. So that's the bargaining power of suppliers. And so if I wanted to go back to that supplier and try to deal with them, I would have to show them that I'm capable, and I would give them a sustainable revenue pattern for them to forecast them. All right, so that's those are the kind of things that get baked into the strategy, and so that, and the industry rivalry is sometimes you can get into, especially if you read this book that I tell you about. It's it's a Blue Ocean Strategy by Kim and Mulgrew. Sometimes if you're looking at a new business, look at the industry first. And if you take a look at, here's a business that I was in, residential security business. It's an absolute cutthroat business. The competitors are fierce, and the only way that you can survive in that business, because since the competition is fierce, that means very low margins, meaning low profit margin, and so that you have to be a volume supplier. So there's no way that you could even get into there. Like the threat of entry, you can't get in because nobody will buy your stuff, because as a small supplier, you don't have the economies of scale like a big supplier, and you can't lower your prices like the big supplier can. So these are the kind of things that you need to understand about Porter's 5 forces. And here's a little more detail on that model. You can see there's a golden key here, so it's going to be very important. And oh, by the way, I have a template for everything in my business, and so that when I have clients, I tell them to look at their at their factors, and then look at what how they are in terms of where they want to go in the future, to give them a sense of what's going on. Okay, now the SWOT analysis. Here's a very detailed piece. Is that you identify these strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and in the analysis, you would look at your strengths and opportunities, so that would tell you, oh, what are possible opportunities based on my strengths? What are possible threats that I could overcome based on my strengths? What are some of the opportunities I won't be able to look at because of my weaknesses? and what are some of the threats out there that can destroy me because I have weaknesses around that. And you ask those open questions, and then you find out, what are the alternative questions, and then you can actually then produce what the strategic issues are, and which lead to, okay, what are the problem statements? These are good, these are bad problems, and these are good problems. All right. So that's what that's all about. So you can see, again, this is key because there's going to be a lot of questions around that. And then this will impact you in your assignment number 4, as well as in the participation activities. Okay, so here's, again, some key things around what that is. Here's a typical model. I went through this kind of thing already, is that, your McKinsey 7S analysis will really give you an idea around your strengths and weaknesses. Your PESTLE will really give you an idea on how you can handle, your opportunities and threats based on trends and happenings. So who could have predicted COVID? I mean, some people did, but it wasn't really adopted. But then, how would COVID affect your opportunities and threats? And again, how would that affect your opportunities and threats based on Porter's 5 forces? What's going on in your particular industry, right? So that's how that works. And again, so this is page 9 of that link on the analysis worksheet. So basically these are just hints on what you could look and things. You may have other things. So essentially, when you do produce that template, I only want to see what strengths and weaknesses you actually identified. And the thing is too, is when you identify those strengths, I don't want them identified as generic strengths. I want you to do some critical thinking. What is the strengths in relation to Tim Hortons? Okay, so that's the way you look at it. Okay, and this is the other pages. Okay, again, so here's the precursor, because we're going to start talking about goals. So here's the precursor to generating goals, is that you do the scanning. So you do the PESTLE, the internal analysis, the competitive analysis. Then you develop what the strategic issues are, and from there you create the problem statements. Good problems are opportunities, bad problems are threats. And once you define these, then it's really easy then to formulate those into goals. And just to know about goals, and we're not going to spend too much time on goals, but know that there are different types of goals. And based on the industry that you're in, and based on the business, and based on what you achieve, you want to take a look at which types of these goals are more relevant to your success. So outcome goals are mainly, all right, well, we want to be leaders in the in our market in the next 5 years. That's an outcome goal. A process goal is, well, we want to create like a manufacturing process that is high in quality, and that will be high in efficiency and low cost. And then performance goals is, well, we want to create $50 million of profit in 2030, or we want to have the lowest cost of the competitive product that we have in the industry by such and such. All right, or we want to reduce our costs by 20%. That's a performance goal. Okay, so understand that those are different as well. So it doesn't look like we're going to have time to do this breakout. I was hoping that maybe we could get there, but I think we're running out of time here. So the thing is that there's 5 components of a problem statement. Who are the stakeholders that are affected by the problem? And I hope you know what I mean by stakeholders. The stakeholders could be the customers, they could be the suppliers, they could be the government, they could be your partners. What is the current state and the desired state? Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And then what's the gap? And then when is the issue occurring and what time frame? So you could see that you're kind of you're getting all this information when you're doing the PESTEL in most cases, and then where's the problem occurring, and then why is it important? And this paper again, you frame that problem properly. You ask these questions. Does the problem appear to have only one possible solution? Does a statement describe a symptom? And then that particular article again, have a look at it. It really gives you 3 different examples where they created a problem statement so that you'll have an idea of how to do that. Okay, so what are goals? I keep talking about strategic outcomes. So they're desired outcomes for individuals, groups, the entire organization. And the strategy is the how, right? How will that goal be achieved? And that strategy, like I said, it starts right initially or fundamentally in the value proposition of your offering all the way down through, okay? And then well-designed goals, they're written in terms of outcomes. They clearly specify a time frame. They're really talking about the SMART piece here. So, specific, achievable, responsible, those kind of things. All right, not going to talk to you about this. This is just a sense of where I got this information. It's the Franklin Covey Institute. This was probably the best book I ever read on creating goals. Right? And where's the fault or the downfall of strategic plans? It's on the execution of the goals. You might have these fantastically well constructed, robust strategic plans, but when it comes down to executing on the goals, it just doesn't happen. And this was, the best thing that I ever read about, the disciplines of execution. You focus on the wildly important goals. That's where I talked about, just have, a few of them. You act on lead measures. And what lead measures do is that it gives you an idea of how close you're coming to give you time to make some changes. So quickly, the one is, let's talk about sales, right? So in sales, you qualify a lead. And then you visit that lead, and then you make a sale. So if you want to make 100 sales and your hit rate is only 10%, that means you need to qualify, 1,000 leads. All right. So that's a lead measure because you know that if you're not getting enough leads, you're not going to get enough sales. Right. So that's a lead measure. And then a compelling scorecard. And what that means is, it's the key performance indicators that are really, really important and really show the success of the organization. If you try to look at all the measures in an organization, you're all over the place. But if you have these key measures that really give us signs of the success, that's great. And then a cadence of accountability. So a cadence is a rhythm, routine, right? What that means is, I'll give an example, right? So, in my department at TELUS, at the end of every month, we looked at all our sales. And if they were below the targets, we'd have these very meaningful discussions about what are we going to do, next month to be able to up that target. We did that every month, all right? So that's a cadence of accountability. So the salespeople knew that if they didn't make their targets, they were going to have to dance and they were going to have to find ways to make their targets, or there was adjustments to be made. All right, so that's how that worked. This is just an illustration to show you how we cascade everything down, and what you're doing then is you're chunking. So with an objective, like a goal, you'll break it down into 2 objectives, to make it doable. You'll break down the objective into, different tactics to make those doable. So the more that things are doable, the more that you can get done, and the better your execution will be. Not going to talk about that, but I do want to talk about this piece. You can see that it's highlighted. This is the Boston Consulting Group, and you really need to understand this drawing, okay? And I think the next slide kind of tells you that. So this is what they call the Boston Consulting Group matrix. And if you take a look at stars, their high market growth rate, high market shares generates you cash. You'd want to spend your strategy to really take a look at that, right? And that's where your strategy should be allocated. And then you'll have parts of your business that are dogs, low market shares, operate slowly in the market, very low cash returns, and then long-term profit. So what that is that then you want to get rid of these types of your businesses or these types of products because they're not going anywhere. Cash cows, they're the most profitable. They're high in cash returns, high market share, large number of customers. So the reason why they say cow is because there's this term in North America, right? You want to milk this business for as long as you possibly can, right? So you nurture those until they start getting into the decline and they turn into dogs, all right? And then this question marks, low market share, okay, high market growth rate though, but it takes, you're not quite sure to get into this business. So, you want to be cautionary about how much importance you put on these particular opportunities. So that really drives your strategy, all right? And what you're doing is, I have this XY, understand it, it's relative market share, and then market growth. So high market growth, all right, and this is this is high market share to low, right? So high to low market share and low to high market growth. So understand these axes and understand the attributes, and I think you'll be in good shape, right? You can get more information on this. Not going to talk about this. Understanding here as well, that the higher level strategy is a corporate strategy. The middle level is around business strategy, and the functional strategies are lower. And these are the attributes of those. So corporate strategy, whether you're going to go global or not. Business strategy, this is all around, the operations of the business, and the functional strategy right into the functions of the business. And this is how it goes through. But understand that growth strategies are really important. So bone up on this. And there's different areas in the growth strategy. That piece, and then understand that the turnaround strategy is something that you really want to learn about here as well. And I put in extra information, to understand what a corporate renewal strategy is, and what turnaround is all about. One of my heroes right here. We talked about this piece. So you can see that I put some yellow arrows here, and understand, what this is all about. Okay, so the thing is, cost leadership. There's an example of Walmart. The focus strategy. There's the focus strategy is you might, pick, like a market that might vanish, if you focus on it. So that's a high risk, a narrow market, so the strategy is limited. That market may disappear. So, you've got to be cognizant of how you develop those pieces. All right. And I think that's about it. Oh, and then understanding, what management by objectives is. This came out way, early in the 60s. And its approach, and the whole key around this is that, a manager, like say a senior manager, would spend time with one of their manager reports, and they would agree on the objectives. And then that manager report would look at their report, and then it would be a mutual thing when they were doing the goals for their report, and it goes down the line. So they're jointly set by employees with their managers, and they progress towards accomplishing these goals. This is key. You need to know what this is. All right. So knowing that this is where you start, they're jointly set by employees. So this top management would do the joint thing with all their reports, and each manager in this division would do the joint planning with all their reports, and then each manager in this department would do the jointly set goals with all their direct reports. So that's how that works. And that's it for this week. I'm a little disappointed we didn't get to the group pieces, you know, the group votes. But the thing is that I think I've shared a little bit more insights around the planning process itself. Again, if you have any questions around the participation activities for 9A, 9B, please email me, and I'd be happy to elaborate on that. Okay, and we'll see you next week. Okay, so take care. Any questions at all before I let go? You can unmute and ask a question. Okay, we'll go from there, and enjoy your week.